and then get your brother to help you.
Sauce?
Because my computer's not on.
Okay, there's a little bit of a delay to do this, but it's coming.
No worries.
Okay, welcome to 1,000 Ways to Be a Champion for Children. My name is Alan Friesen. Okay, there's a little bit of a delay to do this, but it's coming. Oh, my. Okay. All right, I think we're back here. 1,000 Ways to Be a Champion for Children. This show is basically about, thank you, Jesse, got your message. This show is about increasing awareness about adverse childhood experiences, about encouraging adult survivors of adult childhood experiences to seek some treatment or address that situation that occurred to them. And in doing so, you will have a better life if you address that. If you feel it, heal it, and move on, it's going to be better. And then also any tips that we can have regarding self-care, things that you use to regulate yourself, and any steps that we can take to prevent or reduce adverse childhood experiences. So I call it the Champions for Children show. I have Courtney and Mel. Courtney and Mel are champions for children and their parents. Hey, how is the world of parenting in these COVID times?
I think we've probably survived okay, Alan. I know Mel and I counted the weeks. It was what, 16 weeks last year that we spent in quarantine, by virtue of our team having a few close calls, right, and actually a couple of COVID cases. And you know, I think a lot of times men get it a little bit easier, right, than the moms do. But I found it enjoyable, you know, spending time with the kids. It was a year for us that, you know, despite all the worries about work, it was enjoyable to spend the extra time with the kids.
We've also been very fortunate that both of our kids go to Montessori, so Lethbridge Montessori School on Scenic Drive there. And because they're a small enough school and because they have preschool downstairs, the kindergarten class was able to stay open. And so even though schools were being shut down, the Montessori was able to stay open, which was incredibly helpful. And, you know, we had the help of my mom. And so I think we probably had it better than a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah, it's still more challenging. I mean, you did a lot of homeschooling too, did you not, or no?
Didn't have to. No, that was the great thing about it, was that our kids were literally in school, I think, almost the whole time. The only time that they could not go to school were times where we were in lockdown and they couldn't risk exposing their friends, right?
Sure.
So no, we've actually had it really good.
Wow. That's great. I have to tell you, these times have been incredible for me, but I realize that your situation and my situation are certainly not the norm. There's a lot of people that these are really tough times, and but for us, it's awesome because I've got a little bit more time on my hands, a little bit more self-care, a little bit more things. So it's been really good that way. But parenting is always a challenging thing. As if we asked your lovely mother, Mel, what would she say about parenting Mel?
I would think she would say that I was fairly easy, really. I told a line with being, I don't deal well with like disappointing somebody. And so like, I wouldn't want to disappoint anybody. And I'm also like a massive rule follower, which is probably different from Courtney. He lives in the gray a little bit more. And yeah, so I would say I was easy. My brother was probably a little bit harder just because he was, you know, doing things with his car that maybe he shouldn't be doing, like probably that one.
Yes.
But I would think she would say it was enjoyable and fun, and obviously not traumatizing enough where she isn't taking our two boys, so must have been somewhat okay.
I would think it is. You seem to have a lovely relationship, and it's so nice that she is involved with your boys and bringing them up. That's great. That's amazing. So
yeah, she's our best friend, which we're very lucky that she moved here for that.
No kidding. So the Atkinson team, at eXp Realty, you have made a huge commitment to the Child Advocacy Center. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Chinook Sexual Assault Center has a program called the Child Advocacy Center. And what it is they're building out it's a physical place, a physical location where children who have gone through some type of trauma, I'm not the expert on this at all, but I'm assuming it would be a lot of sexual trauma, are able to go to a safe place. It would be a welcoming, non-medical environment where children can talk to somebody about how they're feeling, not necessarily about the actual sexual event that happened, but how they're feeling, how to get past that. And they do have these across the province. And so this is just an addition of that. And it's proven methods that increase conviction rates as well in terms of, pedophiles and sexual assaults against children. So we're super excited to be part of that. They've got a location already. The drawings are being built. It's being built out. It's proven. And, being a survivor of sexual assault and sexual abuse as a child, like, it means a lot to me to be able to give back. I don't have the mental fortitude to be involved with children and talk to them about that, but I do have the mental fortitude to be part of a program where at an arm's length we can make a difference without actually being on the ground, like those wonderful people that are able to do that.
Yeah, agreed. I could not do that role as well. Like, I mean, the toll that would take on as an example, I have a victim service. I don't have a victim service. I volunteer in a victim services unit and have since 1995. And the people, the advocates that go out and spend time with somebody who's having the worst day of their life and hold their hand and cry with them and, that kind of thing, and be, oh my, like compassion fatigue is a real thing. And that's way beyond my emotional capacity, but the contribution you're making, huge, right? Child Advocacy Center, as you said, is in other parts of the province. We don't have it here. So especially the kids who have the worst maltreatment, they have a situation where they don't have to, if my understanding is correct, and Christine came and she talked to us, and she's one of my clients as well. Love her. She's awesome. But she was explaining how it works and that the kids don't have to get re-traumatized, right? Basically, they can do it in a safe environment. It's recorded once. It's like, so the kiddo doesn't have to repeat that again and again. And so that's all great news. So their conviction rates are all higher, and it's a very integrated approach, right? Whatever that kiddo might need for support to move forward is available, right? There's very much a team environment to make that happen. So really, extremely valuable tool. Now, your huge donation, your amazing donation, is also part of a bigger program that you want to engage other people in too, as well, correct? Building safer homes, is that what you call it?
Building stronger homes. Yeah.
Building stronger homes. Well said.
Yeah. So that's what our donation is called, Building Stronger Homes. It's an initiative that we're, putting forward to them, obviously, for $100,000, but it's also something that we are able to do our own fundraising. Like, we've done Concert for a Cause and Carnival for a Cause, and we've partnered with a lot of other businesses in previous years to raise money for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Youth One. Sorry, we've got a child upstairs screaming to have his bum wiped.
Parented.
Yes. And apparently over COVID, we haven't taught one to wipe his bum properly. But yeah, so that Building Stronger Homes is, our donation, but we can also take that into the community as something that's branded and that would encourage other people to give. And whether that's through a function that we are able to put on that people would go to anyways, and then proceeds go to the Child Advocacy Center. We haven't really fleshed that out, obviously, because of COVID, but we're hoping that this $100,000 will inspire other people to consider it when they're looking at giving to something.
Nice. No, that's great. It's going to be a huge. Do you know what the additional financial need is right now to get this done and operational?
That I'm not sure. To be honest, I think Christine probably told me at one point.
Yes.
But I know that right now, like our donation for this year is going towards some of the architectural stuff. So we do have a 5-year plan of what that'll look like. It's a pretty big chunk of cash, but I'm not exactly sure how much exactly is what they're needing.
Right. Yeah. If I recall, I think she was saying about 220,000, like before your pledge, like, so maybe that's, anyways, I'm not exactly sure where they're sitting, but if other people have resources available and want to support a very important asset for our community, this would be a great one to support. It's going to be operational soon. It's going to make life way easier. It's going to stop predators, sexual violence predators. So that's going to be really good news. I know from my victim services folks, crisis averted. Dad stepped in and solved it. Woo!
Big deal.
All right, let's nominate you for Dad of the Year, Courtney.
No medals deserved over here. Just can't wait till everybody can manage that little task on their own.
Yeah, exactly. We're just talking about encouraging others to follow your example with. Watch this bring him in. We can introduce him.
Hey, come here, Conrad.
Come here, Conrad. Yeah, use the scissors. Be very careful, okay?
See how that goes.
You're screaming, you know why.
He's got the scissors out.
He's doing haircuts now.
I don't know what he's opening.
Not too sure.
We're encouraging others, Courtney, in your absence. Mel and I were just chatting about encouraging others to building stronger homes that would be part of that initiative to move this along. I mean, it's happening regardless, but certainly it's going to be better, the more hands on deck to make that happen, right? So,
yeah, naturally, once you kind of have, I don't know, somebody who's committed in that kind of way to that scale, you can open some doors for some other folks to contribute in other ways as well. And for us, it was, obviously near and dear to our hearts, given Mel's experience and the feelings that we have about this. And, the idea is to get the conversation happening and seeing if there's other people out there that maybe share those same opinions. And if they do, wonderful. It's a great project.
Yeah, no kidding. Our friend Nick Nikolakopoulos also pledged security services for the Child Advocacy Center. So, yeah.
Cheers to Nick.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
cheers to
awesome.
Nick.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, very nice. You also mentioned about that you've been supported Big Brothers and Big Sisters, Youth One, those kind of things in previous years, kind of thing. So pretty strong emphasis on youth, right?
Yeah, and I think that might have been, I don't think it was intentional at all.
I think I would say that it was intentional. Mel's had an experience when she was a kid, and I think for the most part, she was a really good kid. And it's safe to say that I went down the wrong path. Like, I had a drug overdose when I was 12, right? And so I think, looking in ways that we can serve the community, I think I've always kind of had an eye on ways that we can serve young people and kind of helping them head in a better direction. And this is not in any way to suggest that my parents had anything to do with that. My parents were both teachers, wonderful people, and they did a great job raising me. I'm proud of my parents, but these things do happen to young people, right? And I think it depends on who you associate with and what opportunities you see and how you spend your time and who you spend your time with. And I think a lot of the things that we've done, Alan, have been, correlated to helping youth find a good path.
Yeah, and I think from my experience, it was less about like not recognizing the youth part, but I've always been a big supporter of the person who hasn't had a voice or has needed help. And so, that does include youth, but that also includes the LGBTQ plus community. Like, I'm a huge supporter and ally of that community as well. And those aren't just children. And so from my perspective, it's always like I've always gravitated towards trying to help those people that might be bullied or put down or just left feeling powerless and needed somebody else to maybe help them find their voice or just know that they have support there.
Yeah, very important, very important. And that's often the kids that are most at peril are those that are different, right? They don't have the supports in place. They're more, maybe they've got parents who don't speak English. Maybe they've got parents who are absent, right? So they're kind of at more of a vulnerable state. They don't have anybody watching their back, perhaps, right? Or looking out for them, right? Courtney, you were going to say something.
No, nothing too important, but I can add to that. I think, for anyone's philanthropical endeavors, I think you try to lean into your own experience and trying to affect some outcomes that might have improved your own upbringing. And for Mel, she was certainly someone who experienced a great deal of bullying growing up. That wasn't my experience necessarily, but incidentally, I had, a transgendered sister as part of my growing up, in our family, and so a lot of these things I think kind of align for both of us in the way that we can serve youth. And we're fortunate enough to have a successful business and to have a team, frankly, that's incredibly supportive of this endeavor. And so I think it's also important to note, Alan, that we have a large team. I mean, probably 35, 45 people, if you count everybody, who is as behind this endeavor and supportive of it as we are. It's just that we happen to be the face of the organization, but if it was just up to Melanie and I, we wouldn't be in a position to do this. And so we're grateful that we get to work with these kind of people who see this vision, who understand how passionate we are about it, and then completely get behind it and ask what they can do to support. And in doing so, here we are with this ability to donate.
Yeah, that the Atkinson team commitment to this and is huge. That's a very much a community leading endeavor or initiative, right? And we'll draw other people who want to be part of it too. So that's awesome. Yeah, one thing, Courtney, you were talking about, like when you were when you were a boy turning into a man, you were a bit of a badass, weren't you?
Alan, the stories abound. I mean, I've literally thought about starting a TikTok just telling these stories. And then every time I think of that thought, I think, do you really want this stuff out in the public? I'm not so sure, right? I mean, I think this is actually the first time that I've said publicly that I had a drug overdose at 12. So that gives you some indication. There's lots of stories to tell.
So wait a minute. Are you doing little snippets of your life on TikTok? Is that right?
Listen, this is like literally, I'm just an observer of this application, okay? Like I haven't had the guts or the wherewithal to actually post a video yet, but I'm thinking, man, like what would give entertainment value? And I'm thinking these stories certainly would, but I'm not sure if they would paint my current life in the appropriate light for success, if you know what I mean.
I'll tell you the main problem with this is that it caps at 3 minutes.
Because there's no way he's going to get the message across in 3 minutes. Is that what you're saying, Val?
That's exactly what she's saying.
Well, I love your videos. When I get a chance to watch them, I love your videos. Especially
when you got an hour.
Hey, I am no one to talk since I'm like broadcasting, 10 hours, about 10 hours a week is what I broadcast on stream on YouTube and Facebook, right? So like if people are watching my stuff, they got way too much time on their hands, right? That's the reality of that. I got on my singing, I got a whole bunch of 3-second watches, and I'm thinking 3-second watches. That's just somebody who's got slow reflexes. They're just like, but anyways, my point was, I don't think you had good parents. You had, a good life, but you had normal parental type, maybe you weren't, no, you were a jock when you were a kid, but like I was not. I was the fat kid who was unpopular. But whatever your normal things when you're a teenager, it's hard. And you know what even makes it harder, I've learned? You and I, well, me more than you, were taught about the man box. This is what a man is about. And if you trying to deviate from that man box, your fellow boys are going to slap you and kick you and beat you and say, this is where we got to stay. And a lot of it is crazy stuff. A lot of it is, I'm learning this and saying, oh my goodness, this makes sense. I understand this now. So, yeah.
I turned 45 this year, Alan, and I think one of the things that happens in your 40s is you give fewer F's about what people think about you. And I think, if you've had a decent enough journey, you get to a point where you start to understand yourself a little bit. And, reflecting back, I can say that those days when I was at that age, I was struggling to fit in. Really, I had two communities, one where my dad lived and one where my mom lived. And I didn't really feel like I was settled anywhere. And I felt like I needed to do some things to stand out in each of those places. And the ways that I chose to stand out were super masculine and super deviant. You know, that's really what it came down to. I was like the guy that was going to do the most extreme things to make a name for himself so that he would be in some way recognizable to people and matter, really, is what it comes down to, just to be of consequence to somebody, right? And then the older you get, you realize that, hey, listen, you know, like, it just matters what you think about you. Great if you can find a wonderful life partner like I have that can live with all this crazy bullshit, and then be lucky enough to raise two small children and then have some impact in your community. Like, you know, this is all kind of, you know, a coming around story, but you know, I think we're just fortunate to recognize at this late stage in life that none of that shit really matters, you know. But when you're young, everything matters. You know, what one person thinks of you is everything, right?
See, and I was lucky because even though I was bullied, you know, because I was, you know, when I went into elementary school, I just been coming out of like being sexually abused. Well, immediately I was vulnerable and a target. And no matter what those kids would say to me, and it happened from, you know, grade 2 on, whenever I would come home, my mom would say to me, it's honestly not you, it's them. So I've got an abundance of confidence. And so does my brother, my little brother, Darcy.
And I have none, which is super funny. Like, I'm still working at that.
Yeah. Like,
really, you don't have much confidence.
Yeah. Where I shouldn't have confidence, I'm confident. Like, I'm a little bit cocky. My mom is super cocky. And my brother is like ridiculously cocky. And I just think it's from growing up and just constantly being told, like, whatever, like, it doesn't matter what those people think. And so then you wander off and you do things that are different, which you get bullied for because you're still being a bit different, but you don't care because you're told that you're the awesome one and those people are just jerks.
At this point, you've told your mom that you were being abused and that stopped. Is that what happened? When you entered school?
No, it was before I entered school. I think it was about like kindergarten, grade 1. Okay. And when she found out, then it stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it was by his stepdad. And so, yeah, as soon as she found that out, like, it stopped. It was immediately done.
Nice. No, yeah. That's great. Because there's some situations where a woman who's in a very tentative economic situation might turn the other way and say, yeah, that's okay. I'm going to let this happen. I'm not going to admit this is occurring. Right. I've heard of this. And that's no judgment. I'm not in that person's situation. But if you had no other choice because your partner owned all the vehicles, the friends, everything, all assets, you're in kind of a little bit of a slavery type situation, sort of, like,
held hostage, right?
Yeah.
Well, particularly if there's been generational abuse in that family, that becomes part of a societal norm, right? And then these are just kind of expectations more than anything, right?
Exactly.
And that happens. I mean, look around where we live in this part of the world. You can see that these types of things do happen, and with a frightening degree of regularity, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I ever told you this, but how I got interested in the whole reducing adverse childhood experiences is because I'm involved in that victim services unit for 25 years. And initially, when we set it up, the worst type of situation you'd have is where somebody died in a car accident. And so the RCMP officer and Sally, the VSU gal, would knock on the door and say, Mary, sorry to tell you this, Bill's passed away. And then, Sally would stay with Mary and make funeral arrangements and who to call and hold her hand and, those kind of things. And then like 2 years ago, Adonis, she's the coordinator of our unit. Adonis is sharing with me some stats, like not specifics, just numbers. And number 1 and number 2 were child sexual abuse and child abuse. And it was just like, it floored me. I just could not believe it. Right. And then she tells us like, we're like 2.5 times the national average. So, I mean, it's a problem everywhere, but it's a huge problem here. Right. And so then that led me into a whole thing about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and a bunch of research on it. And so now I'm about 20 hours a week that I'm kind of committing to that. And I figure I got 20 years, good 20 years I can do that. So that's like 20,000 hours. I should be able to make a difference. I should be able to contribute. I should be able to attract more people to help, because there's groups within our community, they think they can end violence. They can end violence in the whole province, right? So, and well, if they can end it here, they can end it anywhere. But they believe, and it's, as Courtney was mentioning, about breaking that cycle, right? If you have somebody that child who's been abused, then there's a much greater likelihood of being abused again, or being an abuser, right? There's a big connection there. Well, if you can stop the initial one, then you stop that cycle, right? And that I think it's possible to do that. So I'm excited about if there's a way, and your contribution, your support is huge in moving towards that. So Mel, go ahead, Court. Sorry.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I just said it's what we can do.
Mel, your mom supported you, and that was awesome. And then how did you, then just with her support, then it sort of, the effect of it dissipated for you? It wasn't something that had a lingering negative impact on you, that abuse?
I would say, like, what I've learned is that I guess some people have the ability to move forward and some people don't, and it's in your DNA. So I've learned this from a doctor, that so abuse stays in your DNA, but how people are able to cope with that abuse is almost genetic. And I'm not a doctor, I'm just relaying information that this one doctor said. Is so, if I didn't have a specific DNA and I had another kind of DNA or another type of genetic development, then I could have easily ended up on the street. It just so happens, luckily, I have this other kind of DNA where I was able to, cope and refocus and just, work, the kids, hey, just
Carson,
naturally move forward.
Get your own water, please.
And, of course, that comes with support from my family as well. Like, my mom was amazing, and my brother and my dad, and I've had that. But I'd say the biggest thing, that's the two things that have probably come out of that were a result of the abuse was, you are more likely to just fall into that natural state of letting it happen again, because at the time when it's happening, when you're younger, you're able to just like flip that switch and go somewhere else. And so eventually, if it happens again, it's you flip that switch and go somewhere else rather than fighting. And what really changed me on that one is I went to a self-defense course through Camp Hoo-Ha in Lethbridge, I guess over a year ago now. And it was by these two women out of Calgary from Empowerment Inc. And they didn't focus on the actual physical fight. They focused on mindset. And before, if I'd be walking down the street and there was somebody walking behind me, I wouldn't want to offend them, even if I was scared, because I wanted to be polite. What I learned from this Empowerment in Camp Hoo-Ha self-defense class is like, I don't need to worry about that person. I don't need to worry about offending them. They're offending me by getting into my personal space and my boundaries. So my responsibility is to myself. So now I'll cross the street. Now, if I feel like someone's going to come after me, and luckily I haven't had to do this, like, I will fight. I will turn and I will just act like a crazy person and start swinging just to get them away. And that's a mind shift for me. There's this movement that was started in the States called Not Today, Motherfucker, where a runner was attacked and, she was being, someone was trying to rape her in a bathroom. And for whatever reason, she just got this like surge of energy. She stood up, and this guy's quite a bit bigger than her. And she yelled out, "I'm not today, motherfucker," beat the shit out of him, ran out, called the police, and they caught the guy. And so that's been my mantra now. Yeah. My mantra is no longer like, oh, I need to worry and be polite. My mantra is now like, bring it. Like, I'm coming for you more than you're coming for me. And then the other residual impact I'd say it had on my life is, I had a lot of, not anger towards the abuse or anything. My anger was more around if somebody would say something about a person who didn't have power or a voice, and they weren't ever able to put themselves in that person's shoes, right? So, for example, like I was hearing a conversation of someone who was, oh, so-and-so's son is transgender, but they're trying to just make them that way and blah, blah, blah. In which I just got very angry. I'm like, you don't know what's going through their mind. Like, you've never been in that position. Who are you to judge? And rather than making that some type of presentable argument, or not even argument, but conversation, or some type of like information topic, like I would just rage. And what I eventually took away from that, I went through probably 2 or 3 years where I would just get mad at, little things like that. Like, people would just trigger me with misogynistic comments, rape culture, whatever it is, would trigger me, where I would just get mad. And now I'm like, you know what? I can't change that person's opinion. It's sad to say. I can't I can't make rape culture go away. I can't make misogynistic comments go away. I can't do any of that. So I need to stop trying to change the world with those people. I need to start trying to change the world for people that are living it. And that's where the Child Advocacy Center comes in, right? Like, those are the people that don't need help. Those assholes that are saying that nonsense, they don't need my help. Like, that's just going to make me mad and them mad. So why bother? Like, set the boundary, pivot, and go help these other people that actually deserve it and need it.
Right. No, I get you. And if you're making an investment in a young person's life today and it improves the whole trajectory of their life, what a difference, right? What an investment, right? You think of something an intervention you make that has 5 decades of returns, 5 decades or 6 or 7 decades of a better life for that little person because they got the supports and interventions they needed, right? I think it's huge. Yeah. Yes. Courtney, I was going to say, we were talking about when you were young and, your drug overdose when you're 12. I can share with you that I did a bunch of stupid ass things like that when I was a kid as well. And I don't know why. I had 2 parents. Like, I had your parents, it sounds like, were separated. Mine were together. But I was I think I was 230 pounds when I was 12 years old. I was a big fat kid, and I didn't fit in. You're talking about fitting in. And so kind of my group, my tribe became the druggies, because they weren't all that particular. They were okay taking me. So anyways, that became kind of my group. But it was the same thing, just stupid. Somebody say, hey, you want to try this drug? Yeah, sure. And then after they say, well, here's what's going to happen. Oh, well, it's too late. I already put it in my mouth. So I guess I'm in for whatever's happening. So yeah, stupid things like that, and driving stupid, driving drunk, and driving too fast, and crashing cars. And I did a lot of those dumbass things as well.
We could trade stories. We should have a joint TikTok. We could tell these stories.
I got a YouTube channel.
YouTube channel, fair enough. But,
True confessions.
Right. The thing that I reflect on, I mean, not that I want to derail this conversation, but for any person, right? I mean, those make up the fabric of our being, right? Like, I wouldn't trade those experiences in, would I want my kids to live the same trajectory? No, I feel like there's a smoother, easier path for them. But I don't begrudge myself that journey. I think it's made me who I am, and I'm happy with that person. I've got lots of things to learn, and sure, there's some long-term and short-term memory loss and damage, and my body doesn't function like it should. But hey, man, I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm having fun. So hey, yeah. What much better can it be?
Yes, exactly. No, I'm with you 100%. It gives me some empathy for people who have substance abuse disorders, because if the drugs of today are what were my experience when I was a kid, I would be dead or addicted. That's that. Yeah, because the drugs we took were not very powerful, really. I mean, it would be effective at what you're trying to achieve, but it would not be not anything that's going to kill you like these drugs.
And the thing that I find sad about the state of drugs these days is that, for the most part, I don't think people viewed me as a kid with a drug problem or who was making like consistent weekly bad choices in this realm. But now, like, the drugs are so much more potent, and the kind of effects that they have so much more visible, and the longevity of their negative impact so much more long-term, so much more addictive. And then the risk of death that goes along with them. Like, there's just significantly more stigma, right? Random kids just like I was are dying at age 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And the general kind of social stigma is that this was a terrible child with, massive problems and horrendous parenting and all these things. And it could have just as easily been, the 2021 version of 1990 Courtney taking a drug under the same circumstances with a significantly different outcome.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Yeah. Yes. Mel, I was going to touch on something you said, but I was so focused on listening to Courtney. I lost it. It was good though.
Okay.
It'll come back to me, I'm sure.
It will.
Yes. Oh, the crashing car stories, Courtney. We could do a whole bunch of TikTok ones on those because I've had many.
I got a lifetime of those. I mean, anyways, there's still some stuff going on with my driving record that I'm not too thrilled to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. I think I know why. You've taken me for a ride in your Jeep on your, what is it? Trackhawk? Is that what that thing's called?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's a fun vehicle.
Yeah, it's pretty rank. I mean, I'll say this though, Alan, your Tesla is a little rocket ship itself. So, you know a thing or two about speed as well. I'm sure you didn't get that thing only for its economy. I'm sure that you also are pleased with how fast it is.
The right pedal is my favorite part of that car, the right pedal. And the door handles that open when you walk towards the car. Those are the two things I love about that car. Like,
Awesome.
The door handles open. It's like, come in me. Come, I'm ready.
And the gas mileage.
That sounded oddly sexual. That's not what I was going with.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. I had a call with my friend today. I shouldn't name him just in case. This is kind of.
Go ahead, Dave. It's all right.
No, I don't want to. It's libelous because he has a Tesla, and he said, "Hey, listen, I sold my Corvette today," and I said, "Shit, man! Like, you love your vet." He's like, "I fucking love my Tesla." He's like, "Courtney, listen. What I do, I just strap a rope to my steering wheel. I hang a 2.5 pound weight from it so it thinks that I'm driving it. It just drives itself down the road. I don't even need to look out the window. I can check my emails and send my text messages and read books." And he's like, "I just trust this thing. It's so perfect." And he's like, I just sounded like a crazy person, didn't I?
I don't think that person's in Canada.
And I was like, "Yeah, you did." He's like, "I should knock on some wood, shouldn't I?" And I was like, "You definitely should. This is crazy." Like, he was in his car, literally showed me the mechanism that he had for like hanging this weight on his wheel. So his Tesla thinks that it's a human hand touching it. And I've seen him on calls. Yeah. So, I mean, there's that side of Tesla ownership as well, that I think some people maybe just take it a little bit too far. Yeah. Like, it auto drives, but it's not, maybe not perfect.
No, well, they certainly are showing faith in the technology, aren't they? Right? Like, these guys that do that, lay their seat back to have a nap or watch a movie or something, just like, all right, that's pretty trusting. They think Elon Musk has got it all figured out, apparently. So, yeah.
Yeah, trust the software, right?
The world over me just cringes at that.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't handle it.
Hey, you know what? Here's what's going to sadden me. Probably in my lifetime, we're going to go from cars that we have steering wheels and shifters and brakes and clutches and accelerators to pods that you get in and say, "Take me to Atkinson Associates." That'll be sad when the driving experience is no more.
It's not going to be sad because for those people that lose their license, at least they don't have to drive around in a scooter.
But it's funny you should say that, because just yesterday I was watching a video with Elon Musk talking about automation and ride sharing. So his agenda right now is basically to eliminate Uber and Lyft with autonomous driving in Tesla. So they figure you can buy a Tesla, you can opt into the autonomous ride sharing program. Tesla will take 35% of the earned income, and you'll be ahead about $35,000 a year by lending your car to this autonomous fleet. You don't have to drive it. It will drive itself, right? And so that's a whole other concept that, that we have yet to really kind of let sink in. But this is the guy that's taking us to, to populate Mars. So autonomous driving doesn't seem like a real big deal, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think from his perspective it's not anyways, right? So, wow. Did you see him as when he did Saturday Night Live a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was pretty cool to hear that he's got Asperger's, hey?
Hmm.
Not that anybody would be surprised if you know what that is, but still cool that he would announce that. And yeah, I mean, I love that guy. I mean, I don't know that I believe that Tesla stock is necessarily appropriately priced, but I don't think anybody could debate the fact that, historically he'll be one of the most significant figures of our lifetimes for sure.
Yeah, for sure. No question. I mean, the changes he's making, they're going to be like, decades, if not centuries, that's going to be documented, is the way I see it. So,
Yeah.
and the scope as well, right? Like, they're worldwide in scope. So brilliant guy, odd, of course, but that's not a big surprise, I don't think, for being that brilliant, right? So, yeah.
No, yeah, it'd be a shame if he was normal, right?
Exactly. He wouldn't be getting shit done like he is now. So,
I think so.
I know what I was going to ask you as well. Big Brothers Big Sisters, our friend Jen at Big Brothers Big Sisters, tell me about your relationship, like Atkinson and Big Brothers, or Courtney and Mel and Jen, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it started primarily when we worked with a guy by the name of Brian Tennell, who's now an independent agent with the Berkey Tennell team. And he came over and really introduced us to Jen. I don't think we were super familiar with the organization, but he was on the board and really passionate about the work that they were doing. And we got to know Jen and really got to vibe with what they were up to and the impact that they were having in the community. And so for a long time, anytime that we had a fundraiser or some way to generate income or to make a small donation or to try to some way impact that organization, we did so for a long time. And I think, one of the great things, Alan, about I don't know, philanthropy and I think these types of community organizations is that they're often run by these kind of really, really outgoing, generous, kind-hearted, giving people. And Jen's certainly no exception. She's been with the organization a long time, and all you'd have to do is to meet her and see her passion for giving to those kids, and she just makes you want to be a part of it, whatever that looks like, whether you're sponsoring the gala, which they used to do up until COVID times, which is one of the better galas of the year, frankly, in my opinion. It's kind of a casual, affordable, great night where we can spend some money and know that it's going to a great cause. So we've just, in a lot of small ways, I think, tried to give to them over the years. And I'm also proud to say that I was able to be like the chair of a committee where our Rotary Club gave Big Brothers Big Sisters, I believe it was $100,000 to help them finish out their building. And so I was fortunate enough to chair that committee and be able to pass the ceremonial check over to Jen, despite the fact that I wasn't a decision maker in that at all. But it was just really cool to be engaged in that because we feel strongly about that organization, and it was awesome to see that our Rotary Club supported it so wholeheartedly as well.
You might not have heard about what we're working on right now, Big Brothers Big Sisters and our Rotary Club. It's called the Rotary Ready Set Drive. And so so basically it's to help young people. We're thinking 14 to 17 for the demographic that we're going to focus on, to get their driver's license. So basically the driver guidebook that you go through to write your test, then we're going to help them go through this. And I think it's going to be real excited. Jen's real excited about it. And I think it'll be a big value because kids who Courtney, how old were you when you got your driver's license?
Well, as the minute you could do it, I think it might have been like 2 days after it was possible is when I got it.
Yep, me too. On my 16th birthday, I'm there ready to do it, get a vehicle registered. I'm good to go. So there's people now, kids who are 18, 19, 20, 25, don't have a driver's license. So in terms of their employability, in terms of their freedom, in terms of their opportunities, way less, right? And so what we want to do is just kind of work with them to help them get their driver's license. That's going to give them more opportunities, more abilities to kind of be employed and get the benefits out of life that they should. So
would that be current volunteers of Big Brothers Big Sisters doing that, or is that something that Rotary and Big Brothers Big Sisters are looking for volunteers for?
We're looking for volunteers for it. Basically, there's 3 of us right now. Come on and bring them on over and introduce them.
Here, can you say hi?
Hi.
Say hello.
Can you say hi to Alan? Next time you run with scissors, just Hold them like this.
How about
I want to come like,
why?
who's Alan?
Ellen
Alan's
is
our
our friend.
friend.
Here,
He's
let's
over
go
here.
upstairs. Dad's gonna finish.
Huh?
Okay, let's go.
It's like a magnet.
Yeah,
You just hang out somewhere and tell the kids not to come down, and then it becomes the most hot spot in the house, right?
Exactly. They got to be here. So, but that's great. But mom and dad are right there. They're going to look after him. Good.
You know
That's
what,
awesome.
just reflecting on this program that you have, it kind of resonates with me, Alan, because this year, for the first time, we recognize that we need to have a new criterion for bringing people onto our team. We need to ensure that people have their driver's license. This is the first experience that we've had with people who want to be realtors who have not endeavored to get their driver's license independently. And, I'm like you. I mean, listen, I had my license. I think I was even 15, but let's say I was 16. I lost it literally 2 weeks later for speeding, and then got it back again. And that's been kind of my entire life. Like, I can't imagine a life without driving. But these days, it just seems like it's not such an important thing. But how much it must impact people's independence, right? And that's the real issue, I think.
I think so too. So anyways, that's the programs are all simple. We go through, help them write the test. How it kind of came about is during COVID in like March of 2020, I had some time on my hand. So I said I'd try the Big Brother thing. And I said I would try it for 3 months virtual, right? And
Yep.
so we tried it, and I met this young guy, and he's like I was when I was his age, like exactly the same. Loves to have a steering wheel and a shifter in his hands, or a wrench. A wrench works too, and loves whatever he's got that's got an accelerator and something to drive. He's really happy. As was I. I had a car when I was 12 years old and a little kind of racetrack in our backyard. I'd hit my mom's garden every once in a while. She wouldn't be too happy with me if I kind of spun out, lost it. But when I was 16, I had my license that day. Love driving, love acceleration, as do you. Love speed. Why do we love speed, Courtney? Why?
I think it's kind of one of the reasons why I love being an entrepreneur, actually. Like, I love fear. I think it's the adrenaline that kind of gets me jacked up. And so when you're an entrepreneur, I think a lot of times you're at the risk of losing everything. And whether or not that's a good thing, I think it's kind of a fuel that inspires us. And so driving fast certainly accomplishes the same thing. I don't know if it's any less risky, but I think there's a common theme there for sure.
Well, I did try and protect myself a little bit. I sold my motorcycle because on my motorcycle, I was really wanting to go fast. And of course, I was a little bit more vulnerable to the motorcycle, right? You run in that thing would go 265 flat out. And 265, I was running on a road back behind Pincher there where it was wide open, but kind of like not really good pavement. Then I'm thinking, man, if a gopher comes out and I nail that gopher, I'm pretty much done. They'll be picking up pieces of me for the next mile, right? But
yeah.
But anyways, the Rotary Ready, I got us waylaid. The Rotary Ready said,
I was just gonna say, I literally sold my last super fast motorcycle under nearly identical circumstances.
Did you? Yes. Well, I'm glad that we have something in common that we're both challenged with a little bit, because I certainly do. And that's even the Tesla. Now I'm not speeding so much, but at every red light and every stop sign, I just pin the thing, bring it up to speed, and then just coast, right? And so probably everybody else at the light is like, what was that all about, right? So, but anyways, I do it all the time. Hard on the tires, but fun like crazy. So.
Oh, that's right. Keeps the blood pumping, right?
Exactly. So anyways, that's how this program came about. I was working he just turned 14. I said, okay, you're going to get your driver's license. He said, yeah. So we went through the thing together, and it was a good thing because he needed some help with reading. There was a lot of words that I think he knew verbally. He'd seen in videos. He'd seen people say those words, but he never read them on a written page, right? And so he couldn't recognize the word. And a lot of them were really basic words. So anyways, it went well. And I think, it's making a difference in his life, and now I'm into the Big Brother thing. I just said,
Cool.
I'm your big brother until you get too tired of hanging around with the old man. That's how this is going to work.
It's cool that you do that. I mean, I've often considered, Big Brothers Big Sisters from a time standpoint, but I'm so fearful of not being able to deliver on that promise. And I gotta say, man, one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you don't mess around. Like, you're serious about your your time and how you give it, and you give it intentionally and with a high degree of commitment and integrity. So I want to honor you for that. And it's not like you don't have a lot on the go. It's not like you don't have a property that requires care. It's not like you don't have a family. It's not like you don't have a business to run. You're doing all these things. And so for your viewers that maybe don't know that about you, they should know that about you. They should acknowledge you for that, because you've been doing it for as long as I've known you, and as far as I can tell, at least since 1995. But I got to imagine before that too. You're
great at execution. Like,
thank you, Mel.
It's great to have a lot of ideas. It's hard to actually implement them and make it happen, and you're consistently doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I am trying to get more focused now than I was in the past. I volunteered lots in the past, but I think all my contributions were fairly limited just by my choice of what I was doing, or my impact that I would make, or that I would support in making. It's not going to be all me, but it's engaging the people. I think it was a little bit indirect from what do I want to achieve, because what I want to achieve is about reducing adverse childhood experiences. If we get kids on a better path right now, like, Mel, you're like a textbook of how it's supposed to, well, except for the abuse part happening. But so let's say if you could eliminate that from happening, that'd even be better. But where it did happen, and you had the supports, and you had the genetic makeup, and you had, the support from your family, and then, you go and you have this life that's amazing and incredible, and you're a big contributor, and you donate or you volunteer with Rotary, and you're a bodybuilder, amazing mom, and like all the stuff you got going on. It's incredible. So like, that's the path that we want people to take, right? And that's the path that I think naturally comes to people who get the kind of childhood that we should all have, the kind of childhood that we have different experiences, we have exposure to different things, we have support, we get, if we need some correction, it's gentle and saying, hey, you didn't quite get it that time, let's try again, and like, here's what you might want to focus on this, right? As opposed to, the very harsh treatment that somebody gets when they make a mistake, right? And that, that perpetuates as well, right? So
I also think raising your kids to be aware of community, like we're always talking to our boys about community. My mom always talked about community. She would say things like, well, you don't know what kind of day they've had, like, don't assume that you know what that person's life is like. So that was really helpful, and I feel like we're doing the same with our boys, right? Like, they'll, as any kid does, complain about whatever, and it's like, some people don't have houses. Some people aren't having a shower. You're complaining about Cheerios. Some people don't have food. And now I'm starting to see it stick, right? Because they'll see somebody outside and they'll be like, oh, that's sad. They probably don't even have hot water, so they're picking up on those differences. And even at school, right? Like, Montessori is wonderful in the sense that they teach kindness and love and friendship and community. And so the boys are talking about filling buckets. And if they see somebody sad, then they try to go help that person. And it's great that what we're doing at home is also being encouraged at school, because in the end, I want those boys to be out in the world, and I want them to be helpful. And I don't want them to pass judgments on people. I want them to be empathetic and sympathetic and wonderful human beings that are building people up and not complaining.
That's awesome. Montessori, you're obviously a big fan, like right from the get-go. That's where your boys have gone?
Yeah. So Mandy DeCecco Kalibaba actually recommended it. Like, when you're a new parent, you don't know what you're doing.
Sure.
And so I think it was like July, and Mandy had said to me, where are your boys going for preschool? Or where's Carson going for preschool? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's only July. Like, I have to register them because, September is right around the corner. She's like, oh, Melanie, you needed to do that in February. And I didn't know. So she was on the board of Montessori. And so she asked Zara if Carson could come, and they made a spot for him. And then she introduced me to being on the board. And so I've been on the board with Montessori now for 3 or 4 years as treasurer. And it's, as Mandy calls it, a little place of magic. And
nice.
I wholeheartedly agree that Montessori, Lethbridge, is a little piece of magic. It's just such a beautiful and wonderful place.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so the the curriculum they're having is I'm sure very good, but more the life skills and just the caring human being type things that they're learning are more so at Montessori than you'd believe it would be at other schools. Yes.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I've experience with any other schools. I only know Montessori, and the boys are going to Fleetwood in Montessori. So Carson starts grade 1 there. Conrad's going to finish out Montessori at Scenic for kindergarten, and then they'll both be at Montessori Fleetwood until grade 5. So I don't know any other experience from, I do feel like the boys know a lot, like they're talking to me about planets and body, and they can write their names and spell and read, and they're 4 and 6. So and
I just got that stuff figured out last year. So that's amazing.
Well, yeah, and Carson just asked if he could stay at school until the day's end. Like, he's only going till 1 and he wants to stay longer, and Conrad wants to stay longer. So the fact that they want to stay at school longer and not like, and they love my mom, like absolutely love her. She's their best friend, but they're like, we want to stay at school longer and be with our friends and be with our teachers.
Nice. That's great, eh? That they love it so much. Wow.
I think one of the things that I like about it is that it's kind of a more organic approach to learning, right? I mean, historically, school is highly structured. The curriculum is clearly dictated, and there's a time and place for every single thing to occur, right? And the Montessori protocol is more about, there's things that need to be accomplished, but where and how we accomplish them can be changed and modified by the student's learning style and desire to do a certain task at a certain time. And as an entrepreneur, I think I've realized over the years that I've built a business on consistently staying busy, right? Like consistently executing, but recognizing where my energy's at and what my motivation is for in that particular window of time, and then doing that thing. And so as an example, in real estate, prospecting is really important, but admittedly, if I had a really, really busy day, I might not have any time for prospecting, and I might not have the energy for it the next morning either. But I would know that at the end of the week, I had to accomplish, say, 10 hours of prospecting. That's my commitment weekly. And so that I could bang that out maybe in an entire Thursday. I would just get jacked up and focus on the singular task for that one day. And so I just think the Montessori protocol is just a lot like life. I think it's a lot about recognizing that, hey, listen, we all have too many things to do, not enough time to do them. We have to learn to prioritize, and we have to learn to execute. And I think they're teaching children that at a really young age. And so I love that system, because I feel like that's been very similar to how we've built this company.
And it sounds like, if you're saying it's organic, that basically experiences that happen, interactions that happen with the kids are then used as the learning experience kind of a thing. They have the flexibility to be that way. Am I following along?
Yeah, that too. They call them works. So there might be some works associated with math or with social studies or with geometry, or, a variety of things that children are learning at that age. And I think the general approach is that they have to accomplish these certain milestones, understanding the complexity of these tasks and these works that they're working on. But it's not the order with which they accomplish them. It's that they show progress to increasingly complex tasks, and that they have the freedom to choose when they want to do these tasks. And so, for example, if you really felt that, organically you were more inclined to want to address more difficult work in the morning, then naturally you might choose to do that. And so children are encouraged to do that. Just kind of understanding your body's energy, understanding your motivation and flow, and then being able to align that with the things that need to be done, aware of what needs to be done, and just slotting it in at times that help you be in flow more. So I just really love that.
Yeah, and they have this, I wouldn't call it a report card, but it was almost like a growth card, I guess. And it started in their first year of preschool, and it's ongoing. And they go through and they have, able to count numbers. And then it's they can check off practicing, learning, or teaching. And so, obviously learning is learning it, practicing is they're in there and they're practicing, and teaching is when they turn around, they start teaching their fellow classmates, which is pretty cool. So, and then cool. They have other cool things like Peace Day and Grandparents' Day and Black History Month. And at Christmas, they do some hampers for some families in need. And so they're always pushing diversity and peace and community and international community, and just being aware of not just your own environment, but the environment around you and people around you and all those other experiences that come with it.
It does sound like a piece of heaven right here. Nice. Do you think you'd ever go wrong taking advice from Mandy DeCecco-Colobaba?
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't think so either. I think she's like 100% on advice.
She's one of the best people I've ever met.
Yeah.
She is. She's a beautiful human being, as are you two. And I thank you so much for joining me. We've been an hour. We've been chatting.
What?
And yeah, I know. How'd that happen, eh? And so, you know what? You are champions for children. You're champions for children too, directly right in your household, that are going to be amazing human beings because of your influence and your huge, the Atkinson team contribution to making the Childhood Advocacy Center is going to make a big difference, a huge life-saving, life-changing difference for kiddos in our community. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, and thank you for letting us share this information.
Yeah, and thanks for doing what you're doing, Alan. Really, truly, it's impacting our community in a huge way. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Try and stay easy on the accelerator, would you?
It's a necessity if I'm going to keep